Let's look over Google Forms for a little bit here. To create a new form, you go to forms.google.com and then you can click on blank here. But I've got one already kind of started for us. So I've made an example. The first thing I like to do when I create anything new is to look at the settings. Do you want them to collect an email address? You can send them a copy of their response if you like. If you know that the people looking at your form and filling it out have Google accounts, you can limit them to one response each. So that would be like for students that have maybe are doing it from Google Classroom. You know that they have a Google account. But when I'm dealing with parents and having them do it, I usually don't limit it to one response because I don't want them to then have to create a Google account because they don't have one or they forgot their password or whatever. The presentation of this, you can have them submit another response. You can show a progress bar just like any other online form kind of a situation. And you can add a custom confirmation message, which they will see once they press submit on the form. You can also turn any Google form into a quiz that grades itself. How awesome is that? It's so cool. So you just click on make it a quiz. And I usually release the grade later after manual review, just in case there's a short answer and somebody spelled something wrong or whatever. And so you can play around with this all you want. The cool thing about Google Forms is that once you have the basics here, you really can just be really creative and do whatever you want with it. All right, let's get going here. There are different kinds of questions in Google Forms. So this first one is a short answer question, but you can see all the different options that there are. But this one's first and last name. I do recommend collecting at least their first name so that you have some kind of identifier for each person who submits your form, unless you want it to be anonymous. But if it's student work, I always recommend putting their name, even if it's through Google Classroom, just because you don't want any confusion on who turned in what. You can require questions or not. So there you go. Okay, we're going to come back to this little part, but you can tell it where to go after each section, which makes it very customizable and even gives you the ability to create like a digital escape room kind of a situation or a custom quiz for some differentiation. Okay, base clef knowledge. Here's my next section. Oh, I need to add a question here. Sorry, back it up. I'm going to add a question by pressing this little plus, and I made sure it got added to this section by clicking in this section, and then I clicked on this question and it's going to add it underneath. Okay, what clef do you read? And for this one, I'm going to do a drop-down menu because there's two options for me right now in the band world, in the middle school band world. Okay, and I am going to require this question. Now, I'm going to want them to go to the correct section based on what they say. So if they go to treble clef, I want them to go to the treble clef knowledge section next. If they go to bass clef, I want them to go to bass clef knowledge, so they don't have to answer both kinds of questions. Okay, here's bass clef knowledge. What are the lines on a bass clef staff? And I did this one as a multiple choice question. And again, I want them to go to a section based on their answer. So if they answer the right thing, then I want them to go to the end. Great job. If they answer any of these other ones, I want them to go watch a video that tells them the lines of the bass clef. Okay. Treble clef knowledge, same thing. I'm looking at my question, and the way that I get to this continue to next section is the 3 dots, and I check go to section based on answer. You can also shuffle the option order. We didn't talk about that earlier. Okay, so the lines are EGBDF, so if they answer that, I'm going to say great job, and everybody else is going to go to lines and spaces of the treble clef staff. Now, I pre-populated this to make the video a little bit shorter. To add a section, I'll show you right now, you just click on this guy, add a section. Maybe I didn't want that section to be right there, so I can move it. You can move all of these up and down. And then maybe I accidentally created a section, so I'm going to delete it. or merge with above. So anything you do on here, you're not going to mess it up, so don't freak out. Okay, lines and spaces of the treble clef staff. Now I've pre-populated here a YouTube video. So if they answer that question incorrectly, they are going to come here and watch the video. And then after they watch the video, they're going to go back to treble clef knowledge and hopefully answer the question correctly. And once they answer it correctly, they get to exit. So let me show you how I added a video. Lines and spaces of the bass clef staff. So I'm clicking on this section because I want my video to go in here. And you just click add video. You can search for your video, but I've already copied the URL. There it goes. Oops. All right. There we go. After this section, I want them to go back and answer the question correctly. Very cool. Okay. Last thing, the great job section. Now, this doesn't really go with this quiz, but I wanted to show you some response validation. So, what's your favorite YouTube video? That might be a scary thing to ask kids, but should you decide to ask, response validation. I do my 3 dots, click on response validation. And I want to make sure that this is text and that it is a URL. If it's not a URL, I want it to give them an error message. I can't type today. So if they copy and paste something that's not the URL, maybe they put the name of the video, it's going to give them this error message and I'll let them move on. Okay, so now you can make a really pretty complicated Google form here. You can also change your color scheme. You can change your font style, make it a little more fun. And then how do you get your answers here? So you click on responses up here. And you can tell it, yes, I'm accepting your responses, or no, I'm not accepting them anymore. And all of your responses will populate down here. They will also go to a spreadsheet if you tell it to, which is awesome. You can create a new one or you can put it into an existing spreadsheet. So, very cool. Tons of options. Be creative.